I am very passionate about business in all aspects. I don't just try and study my industry, but I study all industries across the board because you can basically find all the principles are always the same.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like training. It's like training. All the principles across training and nutrition are the same. People's methods, execution, and niches are all independent or built by them, but the foundational principles are the same. It's the same with business. You know, money always talks, and it's in the end it is about making money.
Yeah.
But how we make money and the motivations behind that, and our motivation behind that, and the way we live our lives, the way we want to live our lives, and it all still comes down to making money.
Yeah. So I think that's a common thread in most businesses that start off the back of hobbies or leisure activities or passions or stuff like that. I feel like, so it's the same in the filmmaking, photography world. Basically, I feel like there'd be a lot of people out there who, I love strength training, love going to the gym, love powerlifting. How awesome would it be to powerlift all day long and that be my only job and get paid to do it, right? Like that. I think that goes through people's mind all the time. Do you get a lot of people coming to you or asking you how to break into the industry? And
yeah, all the time. And I think the first thing is being able to separate business from hobby. And as nice as it sounds like to do your hobby as a business, you need to be able to distinguish whether you're doing a hobby or you're running a business. And it really does matter, because if you're running a hobby, personal influences, and I've made this mistake many times, but your personality, your choices, your things, that how you view your hobby will dictate how that will pan out financially. And it's only, for me in the past, from the lessons I've learned, it's only ever been detrimental to focus this as a hobby rather than looking at what the economics is behind trying to establish a service that is sustainable and accepted by the market. But yeah.
I think that, so we're similar in that regard, in that we're both in a service-based industry. The best thing I ever did, I'm in video production, okay, is I got somebody who wasn't somebody who created videos to give me an outside perspective on the business aspect of it and look at it as an actual business. Because I think the trap you can fall into with service-based businesses, we were talking about this before, service-based businesses are basically money for time, right? And you only earn more money by getting better at that service and charging more per hour, effectively. And the problem you have is it's a very difficult business model to make sustainable. You have to be really good at business.
It's very volatile. Service industry is very volatile. And I think this is where people get their own personal ideas or into the service industry, where they try to reduce volatility or try to make it a hobby, and then create a service based off how things, say, are more optimal, or the way you view the world. Let's say, example, locking people into really long contracts. Is that in the end, services is you provide a service for exchange of money. And if the more time you're able to leverage, the more money you can make. So if you have more employees or more coaches under you, you have more time to leverage. If you don't have the demand coming in, then you lose money because you have such lots of time to pay for. And this is all, and that is the fundamentals of it. And the value we give that can be based off time or the end result, or the value, like yourself. Yours would be a mixture of time and the result.
So I think an interesting thing to talk about there, I think the big mistake I made this for so long, is people don't understand how to price their time and what that actually means. So what I provide is a mix of a final product, but the way I work out how much that final product's going to cost is based off how long it will take me. And I know exactly to the hour what every part of that production process is worth hourly. And basically what we do is we work out exactly what it's going to take to make it, because we've got experience now. We can tell at the start it's going to take 3 days for this and 4 days for that. And that's how we get the pricing. And I think the problems a lot of people make, and I can guarantee it's the same in your industry, is they don't know how to price their time properly.
Here's a good way. Here's a formula I use to help people. So I do have people that come to me and ask me, how to start their business. And one of the most important questions is, I first start off with, what's their goal with it? Why are they doing it? Because that can obviously first dictate the type of services or how you want to provide those services for the individual. Because it has to be based off your passion and the goal you want and the outcome you want from that. Now, pricing is going to come down to basically the first number I always say people to create, what does it cost to sustain your life? You can call this like your basal metabolic rate. What is the minimum you always need? And I say whatever that is, divide that number by at least 20. So if it costs you $1,000 to live per week, divide that by 20, that's 20 hours. Then you got a baseline measurement for money. So anything above 20 hours of work that you can get paid can be more. Now, if that's still not enough because your goal is to reach, let's say, it's probably more ideal to be something like in a 30% surplus of what your minimum number is. I think this is what I end up doing. So if it's $1,000 per week to sustain your life, then it's $1,300 divided by 20 is a good starting number, I find. Because you want to spend 20 hours on business and 20, 30 hours on business, 20 to 10 hours on the business. And when you build the services, so when I lay out the services, I learned in sales is that you need to keep your product as simple as possible and as minimal as possible. Meaning that if you're an independent coach, I suggest generally only creating 2 services for someone. When I ran Lifters League, if you run a bigger business, I provided 3. Okay. It makes it a lot easier to sell and you get better conversion rates with less products. The more products you have, the harder it is to convert. And you already find if you have more than 3 services, most people are already going to be going to 2 or 3 of them. Yeah. So those should be the only ones you should be providing anyway. And there's a fair bit of psychology behind that as well when it comes to, because you will have 3 services and we'll eliminate 1 or 2 and only give them 1 option or 2 options, which then creates demand to make a choice quickly rather than give them an opportunity to take away and think about it, because there's not much to think about when it comes to providing 2 services other than thinking about your own finances. So when you have your system in place, what time does it take to provide? So for myself, I have monthly coaching and weekly coaching. Okay. And we have you can add or take away diet coaching to that. So it's really 2 services with an add-on. I do have one more service, which you can consider my 3rd service, which is basically a 10-pack of 10-pack coaching.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Package style.
Now, I provide a unique service called athlete management. It's based off the type of clients I service and the type of individuals and what system is optimal for these individuals, which is basically people want to know what to do, how to do it, and get consulting and advice. And my job is to then obviously provide that for that individual. And I do that all on an online basis. So that membership baseline that I have is then divided by how long it takes me to manage that. So that means the weekly check-ins, the time it takes to do my research on that individual, so meaning like follow-up questions, watching videos, then how long it takes to then write the new program, deliver that program, and so on. So then obviously the more efficient your processes are, the more efficient you can be with that time. And once you have a number, then that is a number you can start with. And you can then increase that and change that over time based off, demand and, the niche or the difference you have of your product compared to other people's products. I know I have a very different type of product, so I charge a little bit more than you might see in most industry. So now you have your minimum rate. You now have calculated the time it takes to then deliver a service, and then you base that off. You give that as the price, basically as a start, and then you have your cost of services. Now, my 10-pack, I charge my coaching sessions independently. So then people pay my membership, which then really works really well with my lifestyle goals. My lifestyle goals is to have, since I had a gym, and it's always been the same. It's just I've changed the focus a little bit more based off what I want to get out of the business.
Yep.
And it is, we all want financial freedom, but also freedom of location. So meaning that, I am free to move around, travel, and still do my work. So really those main two things. I'm financially independent and I can move around and do things. And then the third one is my ability to invest my money into a growing, diversified portfolio, and I can only do that if I earn a surplus. So knowing what my end goals are, I can work backwards to find out what rates, how many clients I need, and all those numbers. So I have all the numbers I need to then know where I want to go. And then you got to follow your plan, like a training program. You can't go splurge your extra money on crap.
Yep.
If you don't follow your plan, you won't be successful in business. And I made the mistake 100 times. I'd have periods of earning extra, tens of thousands of dollars, and you're gone just as quick as it comes in. Yeah.
So there's a lot there that I actually want to go back to. So the first thing I would say is, there's a couple of things. Let's talk to the time management. I think it's important that for anybody just starting out, what you think, how long you think it will take to do things is way off, right? And the only way you're going to learn it is it's probably going to take you a couple of years, to be honest. But I highly recommend logging your time and strictly logging your time when you start a service-based business. Don't round it up to the day or half day. Go, how many actual minutes and hours does it take me to do each individual client, right? Because a lot of people make the mistake of being very subjective. I think it's going to take me that long, or I think you need to actually know, right? And that comes of two ways. Either you log all of your time, or you've done it for so long that you just intuitively know because you've done it for that long. I think that's the first thing. And then what you can do from there is, if you've got it all written down and there's set times, you can then look at it and go, you know what, to make this business better, I can either make my process more efficient there, so it takes me less time, therefore I'm earning more money, I can put another client in there, say. Or you can scale it the other way and work out ways to add more and more and more clients, right? But you're working off a objective figure. You know how long each client's going to take. That's number one. I think the other thing I pulled from that is the goal setting with business is it's so key. No different from training. We've talked about goal setting for training, and you have to understand your why and why you're doing it. And with business, it's just because if you're setting up how long have you been opening and closing businesses in this industry now?
It's 2011.
Right. I would say for the first 5 years is fucking hard, like really hard. You don't know what you're doing. you're broke probably. You're making all the mistakes. It's really, 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 really hard, right? And I think if you haven't sat there at the start, if your thought process at the start is, I just want to be involved in the fitness industry, and that's my only goal, you're going to price yourself wrong. You got to think about how to build this business. Like, where do you want to be in 10 years? Because the business has to get you there.
And the business has to be heading in a direction. You know, you got to have, we know it's going to take growth. So you have to start from somewhere that is manageable to somewhere where you ideally want it to be. You know, this is why I say 20 hours as well, because I don't want to work 40 hours a day, because in reality, business is usually 50-50. If you can't work 50% on your business in terms of creating development, growth and stuff, you know, usually then you're putting in more time, because I'll always at least put 10 hours, 10, 15 hours, 10, 15, 20 hours into development of the business. So if my client work is taking me 30, 40 hours and I'm working 50, 60 hours, and that's usually the case when you're first starting.
Yes.
But it is a good baseline to start off with the division by 20 hours, even though you'll probably work 40, 50, 60 hours.
Yeah. I mean, at the start, you take any client and any money you can, right? But I think the key thing is that, like, you made a really good point. Like, very few people make their businesses work for them. What happens is they blink, they wake up 5 to 10 years later, they're working 50, 60 hours a week, and they're like, what the fuck am I doing? I don't enjoy this. Like, this is too much. Like, this is why you need that perspective all the time of what my life's like. If you want a lifestyle, right, that is steeped in routine, and you only want to work between 9 and 5, and you want your weekends free, then you should just go and get a job, right? Like, you've got to think how you want to live, and I think the if you can keep that in perspective, business is a brilliant way to craft any life you want, right? Because you can make your business fit you. Like, you've obviously developed that flexibility. You're doing it all remote. It will allow you to travel, and at the same time, you're financially free. That's huge. Most people would kill for that.
I think what I see all the time, I've had a few people want to do this and then realize that, okay, it's a lot of responsibility and I don't want to do this. And that's perfectly fine. Some people aren't suited to it, but the freedom comes at a cost that you're responsible for everything in your life. Where when it comes to making money, it's easy just to turn up, do what you like doing, and then get paid for that. Rather than not realizing that you are the person who's responsible for bringing the money and servicing that individual. You're responsible for the marketing, developing the systems, maintaining the systems, and all not getting paid for it.
And I think it's something that intimidates a lot of people, and I think it should. I think it's definitely something to think about if you've got a family or you've got other people who are relying on your income, because I've been in this scenario personally with my business. When you're getting towards the end of the month and you can't see that money coming through the door, that is like some of the worst stress you can ever have, especially if you're providing for somebody. And when you're in business, if you're in a job, you can do poorly in your job for usually a month or two, right? And you have like meetings about it, and then you'll have disciplinary meetings, and you basically fail over the period of 2 to 3 months before you even get fired, and then you can get another job, right? Whereas if you don't perform in your business, you don't get paid. You don't get paid. Like, money's not coming anyway, so you have to be fully committed. And I think it's important to be able to ride the waves, because there are going to be many times where money isn't coming through the door. And then there'll be other times where it really is.
This is where the other responsibility comes into place, is that when it comes to earning a wage, the responsibility is on the owner to sustain that, obviously sustain their wage. They get leave, they always get a constant secure paycheck, which is then protected at some part by the government.
Yes.
For us, it is required when it comes to business, is that because service industry is volatile, all business is volatile, It is subject to economic change in the environment, market demand, and all those things, and means we need a surplus, both surplus of cash flow, and if that doesn't, we need surplus of capital. And capital needs to be able to sustain downturns on cash flow.
Yes.
And whatever that number is different for everyone. There's times where I decided it'll be 1 month of months of expenses. Some people will go 3 months.
Yep.
I personally do 1 month because I see 3 months as a waste of capital, and capital can be utilized for something else to generate income. And you always have having something. So you're never going to lose a whole month straight away. You probably stretch that month out for a good 3 months.
Yep.
But just like a program, you measure everything. And I measure my cash flow every single month and every single quarter. I compare months and I compare quarters. And when I start to see a downturn in cash flow where then I'm eating into capital, obviously then I have to reassess the situation to then find out where things need to be changed, whether there needs to be changes in my prices, client acquisition, or expenses going out. Where in the whole system is there efficiency lost or gained? And where can it be gained? And can I just bring more money in? And then this is where you look at securing your long-term cash flow, is also diversifying outside your industry. If you want to be good at business and have a sustainable business income, if you want to create that freedom, you can't just be in the fitness industry. You need to be looking at all aspects of trying to generate income, which you can build multiple revenues. So I have more than just coaching revenues as well. And the more you can diversify that and diversify outside the industry, the better off you'll be. Something simple as looking at having a goal. Like we've come up with a goal to try and put $1,000 a month in stocks. Stocks is always going to grow. And usually if you can sustain that for 5 to 10 years, you can easily make between 10 and 30 grand of $20,000 per year on dividends and increase in stock prices. And that's a very easy way to do it with no work other than just learning to save your money. But
yeah, so okay, there's a few good things there. I think you mentioned that we should unpack. Number one is when you're in a job, what you get paid is what you get paid. Every month you have a contract, you get paid the same thing, right? When you're especially in the service-based industry, and to be honest, if you're selling products as well, you've got to account for the fact that there are peaks and troughs in your. I can imagine. I don't know, but I can imagine in the fitness industry for if you're just a general PT, January is a good month for you, right? If you're just generally a PT who deals with Gen Pop, January is a good month for you. I would probably guess there'll be down months for other reasons, and what you
they're
need
usually 2 to 3 months after January,
right? Yeah, of course, yeah, because everybody crashes and burns, realize they don't want to do it. But you, as a business owner, if you want to be a good business owner, has to account for the spread, and what that means is that money, you don't look at money based off, January I made heaps. You judge it based off, like you said, the quarter. And you know what? You'll find that it's probably balanced out by the next 2 months, and you'll have made the same as the 3 months afterwards across those 3 months. And you've got to think that way.
I find in business, months are still quite volatile in terms of getting accurate measurements. Quarters are really good, but it's still good to see on a monthly basis to make micro changes into your business, and looking at quarters to look at more macro changes. Years don't tell you too much that, but more long-term strategy plans you can take into what kind of long-term goals are we going to do to sustain a constant increase in cash flow, maintain this cash flow, whether it's diversifying your portfolio or revenue streams.
And I think that there may be people listening who either have never been involved in business before in their lives, or would classify themselves as poor when it comes to the organizational side of things. I would class myself as one of those people when I started. I think my recommendation there is get a good accountant. You need somebody, it could be an accountant could be a partner, whatever. Somebody has to hold you accountable to your money and the money coming in and out of the business and where it's all being spent. And you need some outside accountability there.
You need a good accountant that is going to work with developing your business and looking at your business from from a different perspective.
Yep.
From a purely financial perspective. You don't just get a cheap accountant that is just going to do your bookwork. It's not going to help. I've been down there. I've been through a few, and I finally came across the right one. And I realized like some of these accounts were just costing me more and more money. I was like, I'm not really, other than just doing my paperwork, it's not really adding any value to the business.
Yeah, I think the best when it comes to accountants, I think something to look out for is are they booking you in for quarterly catch-ups? That's a basic one. Like they should be business consultants. And what happens is if you get a good one, they get you in a room, your profit and loss sheet and all your accounts are up on a screen, and they'll go through every part. Okay, you're spending more money here. Maybe you can increase your prices here because that will increase this, and this. They're trained to do it and they know what they're talking about. But the important thing is it takes it out of your hands, because one of the biggest mistakes I made, and I think a lot of people make in business, is you don't have a business perspective. You are not seeing it through a business lens. You're seeing it through this business that you built and you're proud of and you enjoy and all these feelings associated with it. When in actual fact, you need someone to come and look at it as cold, hard figures and facts. And
that happens a lot in this industry, is that it gets very emotional. People build a gym because it's emotional. People coach people or teams because it's emotional. In the end, you got to look at the basic economics of what the services provide, and does it work with what a large number of the population is doing. I find, from what I've seen, actually these guys at Zero W do a really good job.
Okay,
and they do it because it's basically same way as me. I have no contracts. If you believe in your product, prove it by not having a fucking contract. And so one thing, they don't have contracts. They provide a high-end service for a niche product where so they have like their general fee, like casual or just memberships like I would pay, because I can train myself and everything. And then they'll have most of the people who would pay for ongoing programming and coaching, which ranges between, I think, something like $80 or $90, $100. And a few people are doing this model. And I suggested this model because I was trying to develop that many years ago. I ended up going down the wrong direction. But the thing is that we were a service that initially used to provide a gym for a $20 per week, $30 per week membership, which is the same price as your common Fitness First. But their model is volume. Their model is 5,000 members that they need to turn over every 2 years. All right. And powerlifting gyms are lucky to get 30. 30 or 40 people. Yeah. It's so specialized. So it needs to be charged for that, because your expenses are my expenses for my gym was just as much as a Fitness First. Besides all the wages and stuff, for me to have a brick and mortar business, buy the equipment, was as much as the layout as a Fitness First would be. Because the quality of my equipment was much higher. It was actually much more expensive to acquire the equipment I wanted as well. So, what we ended up going to, by the end of my gym, was that it was it was both a tangible and service-based product, where the membership was inclusive of either a coaching session and programming, or just programming and nutrition. So you were provided that service, which then now you added a service and a physical location for a membership, which then you charged $80, $90. And that model is quite successful. I've seen it with a few gyms, and it's a very successful model in a niche market.
Yes.
The thing is that when people get too caught up in just, how I can put it is just their own ego, is that they want their gym to be them. They want their gym to be about specifically just what they provide, their sport, just powerlifting or just strongman or just whatever it is. You can't. You have to service where there is demand.
Yep.
And unfortunately, there isn't a huge demand in strength sports. In our eyes, in our community, there is, because we know every single person that does it.
Yep.
But it isn't, and you need to be open to what system's going to work to be able to introduce new members into developing that community. Can you transition the general population into becoming, someone who wants to compete either competitively or recreationally in the sport?
It's a tough one. I feel like for most people in the fitness industry, owning their own gym is the dream, right? Like that's the poster dream. But you realize this: you had a gym. Anytime you have bricks and mortar, the same way as if you have staff or anybody like that, when you build up staff and a location, every minute of the day it's costing you money. Every minute of the day. Mm-hmm. So we would talk about the pressure to bring the money through the door. That's 10x with a physical location. And if you don't have people in there and signed up, you're losing money every day. And you talk about the Fitness First. Their business model is based on 20% of their people actually going to the gym at any one time, 10% even.
And if they have a projection model, and this is the problem with some models with some people, when you develop a model that you sustain a lead intake and conversion rate per month, you understand like how much money and time it costs to actually maintain a client acquisition rate of more than just a few. It's expensive and time consuming, and Fitness First can do it because they also pay lots of staff. They have have not just a salesperson, but they have a whole sales team with the team that manages that team and to hit those targets. And
marketing teams, they've got advertising budgets and.
Yeah, I spent a lot of money on advertisement. I got to, I think in 1 year, and it's still tiny in comparison to what people were spending, but I had like 70 grand in advertising in a year on, and it worked. Yeah, it definitely works, but I don't have the massive budgets that other gyms do.
Yeah.
And yes, the more money you put in, the more you get back. There's almost like a hard phase of putting money into advertising where, let's say your first 10, 20 grand, you get not much. But when you start to reach more and more money, you start to see the turnover greater and greater. And also having unsuccessful, marketing models, which costs money and make no acquisition. And trial and error costs money as well.
Yeah, it's rough. It's really, really rough, especially if you're on your own and you don't know what you're doing. I mean, business is one thing. Like,
just because you build it, they won't come.
100%. I mean, you could be the world's best business person, but if you don't understand how to market your product, you're not getting any customers. It's such a multifaceted thing, and I know anybody listening is probably fucking terrified right now, but the only way to successfully navigate this is fucking do it and fail quickly and adapt quickly. Like, you've just got, like I said, the first 5 years are just fucked. You're just going to be making mistake after mistake after mistake. You're not going to be going anywhere. And then over time, you learn your lessons and you start to kind of pick up speed.
What you just said is, I had this conversation actually today with someone, is both adaptability, but then another word I like to put with that is ownership, and that the market's always going to change. The fitness industry has changed heaps. Powerlifting industry has changed heaps. It's you have to be aware that the market's not always going to be the same, and that your product might end up being something different in a few years' time, and it might have to be out of necessity, depending on what your goals are with your business. But you also need to take ownership for any problems that come with the business. And this is where I've been annoyed with some things, like with this pandemic and people's excuses with this pandemic, is that yes, we've all experienced a form of hardship, and there's some things we can't control, especially in industry. But if you are responsible for your own finances to some degree, you need to try and adapt. And there are limitations, obviously, within the pandemic. And I'm not denying that industries have suffered. It's just that you have to find ways to adapt to the market. And good business owners have developed or adapted to recessions, or through progressive technology that creates services obsolete or parts of the business obsolete, or anything that causes economic downturn, is that people who survive have learned to adapt because they own it. They own the problem. There's a problem, you figure out a way. And as soon as you relinquish ownership of a problem, you no longer solve that problem. And if you're not getting leads and you blame something else, you aren't responsible to do anything about it.
Agreed.
And that's anything, that's everything. And I have had this mindset forever of extreme ownership, is that I own every possible thing that comes my way. If I lost a client, it's my fault. If a staff member lost me money or has left, it's my fault. I should have been better at screening people. I should have been better at hiring.
Well, at the end of the day, irrespective of anything else, you're the one wearing the outcome because you own the business. If something goes wrong in your business, it doesn't matter whose fault it is. You're the one who gets hit with it at the end because you're top of the chain. The extreme ownership thing is interesting because did that come from the military? Because obviously you were in the military. It
comes from I can't remember his name. He's a Marine in the.
It's Jocko Willink.
Yeah.
But it's a military theory, isn't it?
It's always been my mindset, and it's just funny. He kind of reinforced it some more.
Yeah.
It's always the mindset I've had. It's always a mindset I've had. I don't know if that it was because of probably because of military, maybe not.
Yeah.
I also know people in the military who are still shit. So I guess it's still your attitude. It's still your attitude. But yeah, no, he definitely I follow some of his stuff, and it reinforces the idea and the importance of taking ownership. For everything that you do or goes on, because it forces you to solve a problem.
So it's really interesting. I feel like what is interesting about it is that the fitness industry will have been quite similar to what happened with our industry. And look, this pandemic and the lockdowns, right, has been massive change. But if you look at it, some people have done really, really well. Like, more money is made during recessions by people who know what they're doing than any other time.
Oh,
right? Yeah. There's a gym across the road that's been family owned for like 20 years. It was a great gym. Okay. It's basically the lockdowns have hit it hard, and a big kind of company that's got gyms all around the country has just come in and bought them out. And it's just changed over hands now. And it's like they've basically sat there, got all their money together and gone, right, we can go buy that gym for half the price it would have cost when things were good. And that's what they do. Like in our industry, it's interesting. Like my wife is our managing director, and she is that person who is brilliant at business, sees it as everything as a transaction. It's all from a business perspective. She doesn't give a fuck what we're doing. What money comes through the door and what money leaves is all she's thinking about, right? And when this pandemic hit, we couldn't do anything because we film people, right? Like, nothing could happen. We couldn't go into any workplaces, etc., etc., etc. So some people reacted by burning cash on trying to get, basically spending more on ads and stuff like that. For a market that's dead. Exactly. We cockroached. We called it cockroaching, right? Because cockroach can fucking survive an atomic bomb. We basically sat there and went, how much money do we have in the bank? And we stretched that money over 6 months with little bits popping up here and there. And was like, okay, let's just stretch it as long as we can till the turnaround, and then we'll build from there. And I feel like the fitness industry will have been exactly the same. There will have been a lot of people who overnight lost all their income and they just didn't do anything about it. But there will have been lots of people who adapted, changed. And what happens is, as it's happening, everybody's stood still. But when things open up, the people who've adapted are 2-3 years ahead.
And that's the responsibility of your money, of the financial management or financial freedom. That's the responsibility of financial freedom.
Yeah.
Being responsible for your own income is that there is no steady income stream, and you have to account for, for fluctuations and change of the market. This would have been no different than any other big downturn in the economy. Lots of industries would have went down. It's just lucky Australia doesn't have many of them.
Yeah, I mean, tourism was the worst, wasn't it? I think there is no tourism industry, but it's funny. How was your business affected by COVID? Just out of interest.
I made more money in the end. So I had my gym and I decided to close it down over when we locked down.
Yep.
And many reasons. It was actually, the decision was made before the lockdowns and stuff happened.
Yep.
It just coincided really well with it. So, with all the advice I had and stuff, we timed it with the lockdown because we knew there's going to be quite a few advantages to doing so. And yes, I had any possible advantage. There would have been no time in history that the best time to close a business and start again would have been that time.
Of course.
So if you wanted to reassess your business and say, you want to scrap an idea and start again, that would have been no better time in all of history in Australia to do that, which would have been right at that pandemic. I got away with, I won't say got away. I just, I did everything legally and was able to, sell parts of the company off a lot because I was getting no problems from financiers and stuff like that because of the economy was going so crazy that no one could pay attention to any person. So we pretty much had a lot of freedom to dictate how we were going to close this business down. And so from it, I actually made quite a bit of money from pulling the gym apart. From that, I reinvested a lot into stocks and made tens of thousands of dollars more money because of the volatility of the stock market.
Yeah, because the stocks like Afterpay went through the roof and 10x'd over like 3 or 4 weeks, didn't they?
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
Anyway, then I remodeled the business to be around what my original goals were. They've always been the same, was financial freedom and freedom of location, so that because I love traveling.
Yeah.
And so we modeled the business around that, still providing the service that I am good at and I enjoy. And I developed that athlete management kind of system where that is all online based as a membership service, and that my sessions are, an extra cost. So then I see dictate when I take sessions or not. But I base my income off the membership base.
Yep.
Now, with a massive reduction in expenses, so getting rid of all the finances, the brick and mortar business, the employees, I was able to, I'm actually still earning probably about 50 to 60% of what I was earning at Lifters League, but I have like a 90% reduction in expenses.
Yeah.
So the fact that I had about 5 employees, brick and mortar, paying or finance, earning a certain amount, I'm still earning more than half of that with no expenses.
And a lot less stress.
Yeah. So my money was getting chewed up by unnecessary expenses. My ability to make that income is still there.
Yeah.
It's just obviously not as much. I just don't have as much manpower. I don't have as much, coaches and stuff like that to have that high turnaround. But I still have 2 people employed with me, and with a much more safer model. Well, from what I've learned, I used to put people on wage, and it's expensive to keep people on wage. So I do commission.
Yeah.
So your pay is dictated based off how well you work.
Yeah, of course.
Just like any other business, if you're good at managing your clients, you'll make more money. You'll keep more money. And so the same responsibility gets put on my coaches now, is that I provide commission, on services they provide for my clients. And yeah, I keep expenses low. And
I mean, yeah, there is something to that. The expenses thing. If you can get to the point where, I mean, I guess when you start, if you do nothing, you earn nothing, but you lose nothing. I guess you want to stay as close to that as possible. I think. I mean, I was guilty of this. You can get drawn into the, oh, well, if I add this and add this and add this, look at all the stuff I can do. And you think of all the potential, right? The bigger clients and the fucking clothing line and the supplements and all the other stuff, that, especially in the fitness industry, that people want to branch out into. And what you don't think about is I'm adding liabilities all the time. And that's fine. Like if you're somebody who is not risk averse and is business focused and wants to build $1 billion empire, you have to accrue liabilities and you have to wear all that. That's fine. In my estimation, those people are few and far between. Like it is better for the average person to reduce those liabilities so money isn't going out the door all the time and just cash in.
And not just liability financially, but liability of time as well. Because if people want to commit to new ideas and things, and that's a good way to put it, is that how much more liability and responsibility you're applying for what you're going to get. And is there just more potential in currently what you're already doing before you decide to diversify or add something? Or
well, this is the great thing about business, because more doesn't mean more. Like, I mean, you're the perfect example of this. You can add more coaches and get more clients, but also you can get more by tweaking your services. And can I move it online? Does that change the impact of things? Can I do, like, there are a million different things you can do instead of just adding more capacity. You know what I mean?
Usually most of the time adding people will cost you more money than it makes you. Usually the first opportunities to do so is really to relieve your own time.
Yeah.
Because if you can sustain a surplus of income that's greater, you might want to put some of that money towards more increase in your time. But then you also then become responsible for someone else, and that, your business turnaround may have to be greater to try and sustain that person's income as well as yours. And then, but it is a juggle. I probably will not go any more than I've got now, because it alleviates enough time and still makes me income. So, and because I am based off commission, I don't have as much responsibility, meaning that if my income goes down, my expenses go down.
Yes.
Goes down with it. The problem I had with the gym is that my income will go down, but expenses will be exactly the same.
Every minute is costing you money.
Yeah. So, the way you set up your business does matter too. If you want more liabilities to try and generate greater income, the best approach is that you need to ensure that you are secure financially, that you have the sufficient cash flow, you have the backup capital to sustain that business. And is that liability only going to interrupt a percentage of your income, not of your possible revenue, rather than all of it? I put risks on all of my capital income to try and generate more, especially when I was getting desperate to make ends meet, is that you'll take bigger risks. But I have learned that, rather than getting yourself into a mortgage that's going to basically chop 50-60% of your income and then living on a budget forever until your mortgage is paid in 30 years' time, wouldn't you rather that mortgage only be a very small portion of outgoing expenses, which could be, come from being able to have huge down payments and have the capacity to have an income revenue streams high enough that it'll cover that, plus you'll still sustain your own income. It's just the way you want to. It's just, make it easier by not doing as much or just thinking about it more.
Yeah, and I think
the growth mentality, actually.
Yeah, so we'll end on that. I mean, that's a great thing that people overlook. And you said it a few times. You allocate time for you to work on your business. If you run a business and you're responsible for that business, time not being in the business is sometimes priceless, and you've got to allow, like, you don't want to fill all the hours of the day doing all the time. You need, it may seem lazy to somebody who doesn't understand it, but you need time to just sit there and go and look at everything and come up with ideas. And it's called working on your business instead of in your business. And it's so important to allocate, because especially when times are tight, you want to just keep doing more work to bring more money through the door. But I can guarantee if you give yourself an investment, it might be a day, a month.
I am so adamant on maintaining my hours to work on the business. Is if I see my week going to be too busy working for the business, I will do work on the weekends. I wouldn't do my on the business work on the weekends. I'll do my for the business work on the weekend. So I have the weekday to sit there and think about business and how I'm going to grow it and how I'm going to develop it.
Yeah.
And I'll always have at least a full day off per week to do that.
Yep.
Doesn't always happen, but that's how I think, that's how much I protect that time.
Yeah. So important.